Hi, guys. Welcome. It's Dr. Deb, and it is Thursday, but it's not 1 o'clock anymore. That passed a few hours ago. Welcome to the new time. For those of you who can't make it, I'm sorry, but more people could make this time, so welcome. I'm so happy to see you here. We are going to get right into our talk. We're going to review Dr. Ramani Durvasula's take on why narcissists hate sick people. Before we do that, I want to beg everyone out there to please chat in. I want to know there's a lot of you there because I switched the time on purpose for all of you who would be here at 9 o'clock because you all said it was a better time for you. So please chat in because my whole point is having people to talk to. You know, it's hard to sit at a computer screen and talk to myself. I can walk up and down the hall talking to myself. I can eat my breakfast and say, this is good to myself. But this is supposed to be, hopefully, a little bit of a conversation. So please chat in. Tell me if you hear me, first of all, and the sound is good. And if you can see me, that would be much appreciated. And I would really like to know that chat is disconnected. Unable to connect chat. Please try again later. Are you kidding me? All right. I guess I can't help that. I don't know why that's not working. Maybe if I chat, it'll reconnect. Hi from Dr. Deb. Let's see if that, I don't know. I don't know if that'll show. All right. Remember to guard your privacy. Okay, I'm not going to worry about that. Oh, somebody gave me a thumb. Oh, good. So somebody is there. Try to chat. I chatted to myself. I see her there. Thank you for showing up, but I want to hear from you. So, okay, let me start by saying that I'm not necessarily in love with the topic of narcissism, but there's this part of me, it's not my whole self, it's just a little part that likes and believes in fairness. And I kind of shoot for the underdog. I always was like that. It just doesn't seem fair that some people get the good treatment and others don't. So it seems really unfair to me if some kid got abused as a child and then they grow up to become a narcissist, and I've explained in other videos, I'm going to point you to where in a minute, but they grow up to be a narcissist, they give their partner heck for it, and it makes their partner miserable, and I get that. But then they all want help, and all the psychologist can do is point fingers. You're a narcissist. And narcissists are so bad. They do this and they do that and they do the third thing. Okay. So that's part of what motivated me. This is my second week in a row to do a review of somebody else's video on different things that they wanted to say about narcissism. That said, there is now a playlist coming to the defense of narcissists that I created on my channel. My channel is Dr. Deb Empowers. It's real easy to remember here on YouTube. So you can look at the other videos there. And I created that, but don't worry, we won't just do that all the time. If you can chat in, though, I would like to know if this topic intrigues you and you want to hear more about it, and you may want to wait to say that until later in the talk to see whether you like how it's being handled. All right, so let me say this to start with. Dr. Ramani Durvasula is a real psychologist. So that's in her favor. And she even went to a good school. She went to UCLA. I looked her up. You know, the other guy that I quoted last week is it doesn't mean he didn't do a lot of research for whatever he does, but he's just a coach. Now, the thing about psychologists, there's two things to know. First of all, generally speaking, they are research oriented. That's a good thing. Like me, I'm research oriented. It means you build your skill level on dealing with people on the basis of research. Good thing. The second thing to know about psychologists, which is kind of not so good, the field of psychology wanted very badly to be as good as doctors. You know, doctors are God, right? My PT for my arm, I'm still getting work on my arm from my surgery from last summer. And he said, I said, you know, they should have told me to go to PT sooner, because really you're helping, you're doing the only one that's really helping me. And instead they sent me to pain management. I really wish you would have talked to my doctor. And he said, listen, the difference between God and surgeons is that God knows that he's God and not a surgeon, and the surgeon thinks he's God too. Anyway, all right. The point is, doctors have a lot of esteem. We give them a lot of honor in this country. So that means that when in the 40s, like post World War II time, post World War I, really, it started, where they were trying to measure and see who would be a good soldier and not break down in combat. So that's when they started this diagnostic thing for mental disorders. And psychologists fell into that trap of wanting to be just as good as doctors, instead of realizing that maybe they had something to contribute on their own. The problem with that is that they are then very diagnosis oriented. Now, when my arm developed this weird reaction from the surgery, basically I had shooting pains, which are gone, and now this part is just numb. They did do tests, like real tests. They stuck pins in my arm and I almost passed out, to find out, like electrical probe things, to find out what was going on with my nerves. And they found my nerves weren't working, because, yeah, they had pulled the nerves apart in the surgery. The point is, it's one thing to do a diagnosis that's based on physical, material reality. And it's another thing to do a diagnosis that's based on behavior, which you have no idea why the behavior exists. Okay, we know everyone will agree narcissists must have been abused to come out that way, but why do they have this type of pattern of behavior? Like, what's going on? I mean, could a person with brain damage, maybe a tumor, God forbid, in the brain, or a stroke or seizure patterns, have some behaviors that may mimic mental illness? Yes, this is known. And if you were to take all the different behaviors that people have that get classified with a diagnosis, you might find that 10 different therapists or psychiatrists who are trying to do a diagnosis on someone who acts differently than they would expect get 10 different diagnoses. See, the problem with mental health diagnoses is when we rely too much on them, we start losing track of the real person behind the diagnosis. So this is where I'm faulting somebody like Dr. Ramani, because she is relying, they do this and they are like that. So she goes into this thing about why narcissists hate sick people, which was the title that I copied down on a piece of paper, I don't know how many weeks ago, when I thought What does that mean? And then I did a search on YouTube, and the title had changed to why narcissists don't like sick people. I don't know why she changed it. Maybe she felt that word was too strong. Maybe she did have, after all, a little bit of compassion in her heart for the narcissist. And I certainly hope she did, because it doesn't sound very nice. Nevertheless, throughout her whole video, and I listened, God bless me, to all 12 minutes and 21 seconds of it to make sure that I was fair to her. And in the process, I copied down things that I felt were relevant, and I'm going to go over her 3 mistakes, at least from my opinion. Okay, so what I want to start with is just going right down in order. It flies in the face of their grandiosity to find that their spouse is sick, because they don't believe they will ever be sick or age. And that means that when they find their spouse is sick, it leads them to feeling shame that there's sickness in the family, and anger. Now, she rushes to say that they are not psychopathic, because psychopaths can't tell the difference between right and wrong, and they know what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to be nice and caring and kind to the person who's sick. So what they do, and this is what she calls mask on and mask off, is they're nice when there's other people around, but because they're ashamed and maybe scared of that person's sickness, they don't want to deal with it at all. And so when no one is around, they're not so nice, they're not so kind, they're not so helpful. Well, as a psychologist, I would hope that there was research behind the statement that they don't like it, even if they don't hate sick people, that it flies in the face of their grandiosity. Well, let me say this. If she's admitting they're not psychopathic, which means they know the difference between right and wrong, that also means that they have some level of self-awareness, that when they're behaving right, it's right, and when they're not being kind and empathetic, it must be wrong, right? So what's going on here? If they really do know the difference, then they must also be at some level aware of their own shame and anger, and they must at some level be interested, curious to know why they would switch mask on and mask off. See, I'm not getting from anything in her video a sense that even though she says they're not psychopaths, that they're anything human about these narcissists who have this grandiosity and where it came from. It bothers me because I did a Google search. I went to Google Scholar just for you guys. I could not find anything about this topic. Google Scholar takes all of the journals that people read in the various professional level magazines and journals and books, and puts it all listed there, many of which are not even accessible. You have to pay just to read an article, which is fine. If you want to get something out of it, you're willing to pay for it. But I didn't see anything listed. There was not a single title about the feeling of shame that a narcissist would have if his or her spouse was sick. I did see some articles about their reaction to their own being sick, which is bad. Since they have entitlement feelings, they therefore want the whole world to take care of them, and they feel like being sick, no one else in the world had such a feeling about being sick as they do because they don't have empathy. And that's what I got from the research. So I hope she's right. I'm not going to say she's wrong. I don't know. But she did not cite any examples or any research to back herself up. I mean, I think if you're familiar with all the stuff that I talk about on my lives and in the other parts of my channel, I always cite my sources. I cite the people. I even pulled out, oh, it's not here. I moved it to the other shelf. Last week, I pulled out Terry Real because although I don't think his therapy is more than just general talk therapy, it's not like trauma healing oriented. He does talk about helping narcissists change, which brings me to the first big problem. This is a small problem, but the first big problem that I saw, actually, it's not the first, but it's one of them. I call it mistake number 2. I'll get to mistake number 1. She says like this: there is no way that the narcissistic personality can be caregivers with its entitlement, grandiosity, impatience, manipulation, and victimhood. Meaning, if you have a narcissistic personality, then you cannot be a caregiver. That is a huge mistake, and very frankly, a psychologist should not make such a statement on a live screen that how many thousands of people will be watching and take a risk of misleading people. If we are going to agree, and even that guy Grannon from last week that I quoted admitted that to become a narcissist, you would have had to be abused. If we're going to agree that it starts with abuse, that is trauma. And that means that trauma therapy will be able to help such a person heal, provided they go to therapy. Okay, if they don't go, you're right. I mean, a bad person or a person who's good but looks bad and acts bad, it's all the same thing if they don't get help. But the point is, you can't say there is no way. Yes, there is a way. If they get trauma therapy to heal, for sure, they can be helped. Do I guarantee it? I can't guarantee it. Although I'd like to guarantee it. I guess if my lawyer said I could say it, I would. Usually you can't make that kind of a claim, but just as I can't make a claim on a public statement here that you can help a narcissist, because if they were abused, that's trauma, and trauma is healable with a specialist, then why should you be able to make a claim that they can't be healed? Do you see the mistaken logic there? How can you say that? When even Terry Real, who is not a trauma therapist, gives examples in his lectures and research. You can look him up. I forgot the name of his book. It just flipped through my head, but it's in the other room. I'm not going to go get it. Sorry. I got it last week. If you look at last week's live, you'll see it. And it's in the Narcissist playlist, so you'll see it. Okay, so that was the first mistake. I called it mistake number 2 because I didn't tell you mistake number 1 in order here. I'm going to go to that. And this, as a healer, is even worse. This is even worse. If we agree that her audience is not the narcissist, she has no training and no skill to help the narcissist heal, basically she should just admit, I don't have that kind of training, instead of saying, there's no way you could help. But okay, I'm putting the words in her mouth. She can't help narcissists. But her audience is the spouse of a narcissist or the child of a narcissist. Then she goes on to say, this is confusing and heartbreaking to you, meaning If you're sick, they're going to help you when your friends are watching. And they're not going to be kind to you when no one else is around. So you better get ready for it. You better prepare for it. You better tell people to help you if you're going to be incapacitated. Maybe you'll have surgery or something and you'll need the help. What kind of business is it for her to sympathize with a person who is the spouse of such a person and not want to help them get to a better place? What is wrong with her? I see people all the time who come in by themselves because their spouse refuses to come in to get the help they need. And they say to me, I just had this happen. They say to me, help me leave my partner. Part of me loves him. Part of me still in love with him, and part of me cannot stand this for one more minute. I can't stand it. And I'm like, I'll help you. Let's work on it. Let's work on disconnecting from your partner so that you can leave. But here's the deal I'd like to make with you. First, let's see if we can get him to come in and see me. I'll even see him separately from you. We don't have to do couples work. I know couples work can be very dangerous with a narcissistic person because they'll start arguing with each other. It'll be worthless. It'll be like throwing your money in the garbage for me because I'm not going to be able to help you if you're arguing instead of doing therapy. So that's okay. I'll see that person separately. Try that first. And if your husband refuses, I'm with you. I will help you get the strength and fortification to leave. Why isn't Dr. Ramani doing that? She's already admitted somewhere else in the video that people with a narcissistic spouse may want to stay with that spouse. Maybe it's their religious belief. Maybe they have kids and they really feel like the kids should have a complete home and they put on a good act for them. Maybe they can't afford it to leave. Although I don't agree that that's a possibility because there's a lot of single people out there who are struggling to support a family. Maybe they have a trauma bond based on their own traumatic history growing up, in which case she should be helping them with that. Again, we're back to trauma, right? Two people have something in common that attracts each other, and it's often trauma, even if it's not the same kind of trauma. You know, I've been talking a lot for a long time, and I want to know if the chat is working. Can anybody chat in and tell me if I'm making sense? If you have questions, specific questions on this, arguments, disagreements. If you can't chat in, just go back to the email that you got earlier, or if you saw it in Facebook, make a comment there or comment here when this thing becomes published as a comment, whatever you want. I'll answer your questions. There were several people, quite a few actually, who sent me emails with their comments, their questions about this topic and other topics they wanted me to talk about. And I texted them back. I emailed them back. It's all good. So I'm happy to do that. If you have therapists who can't take 5 minutes to talk to somebody, that's not healthy for them either, or you. But my point here, mistake number 2, is that she knows the people she's talking to won't leave for some reason. They're narcissists. And she's saying, get used to it. Accept it. This is the way it is. That's terrible. We only get one crack at life. It shouldn't be painful. It should be beautiful. And if you and your spouse have some kind of a thing in common, which is your childhood trauma, one way or another, somebody had a divorce, somebody had an illness, somebody's parent died, whatever it was, it's not always abuse. Whatever it was, if you had something that brought you together, honor that. That's a beautiful thing. Heal yourself, try to get them to heal, and then you don't have to say accept it. By the way, that person did get her husband to see me. It's great. I'm very happy he did. I like him. He's a good guy. I don't think he's a narcissist by the classic definition anyway, but that doesn't matter. That's not the point. That is not the point. It doesn't matter. The point is when someone has a disorder and they say, oh, just leave, that's not right. Anyway, let me go on to mistake number 3. Mistake number 3 was like this. She had on the jacket of her book, which was, I looked her book up, she wrote, "It's not you," which is a very nice statement. You're not at fault. Your narcissistic spouse behaves that way through no fault of yours. And that could be true. I mean, their behavior is true. The fact that you're not contributing may not be true because we all react. And we all can react badly when we're mistreated, which is normal. But it's still a reaction that's not helping things. So anyway, but that be as it may, I went to Amazon and looked up her book, and she wrote, "Just as a tiger can't change its stripes, a narcissist will not stop manipulating and invalidating you no matter how much you try to appease them. The first step toward healing from their toxic influence and to protect yourself from future harm is to accept that you are not to blame for their behavior." Well, I agree, you're not to blame for their behavior, but once they behave, even if they started, like the little kids in the schoolyard, he started. No, I didn't. You started. They're 5 years old. This sounds like 5 years old. It's kind of silly. The fact is we all react, and we have to react differently, and maybe appeasing is not a great way, but there are many choices everybody has. That being said, I don't like the tiger changing its stripes metaphor. Why don't I like it? You guys, if you can type in. I've just told you, and if you've seen my other lives, and if you've read all the posts that I've written, which are on my blog, you will know that I don't like labels. And I started this talk by saying I don't care for this whole approach, which comes from wanting to be as good and godlike as doctors to be able to diagnose someone. I don't like it. It's rude. Aside from being unscientific, very unscientific. A tiger was born with stripes, right? I mean, there may be some that don't have them, but they're supposed to have stripes. That is nature. We are not born to be narcissists. It is not nature. What's nature is developing coping mechanisms, which may look in the end like narcissism, developing to protect yourself when you're a kid. That's nature. But just as you develop them, you can develop others that are better and work better. And you have a self, which is a soul. Now, just to understand this further, somebody wrote me more questions and today in an email about narcissism. Go watch the very first video on the narcissism playlist on my channel, because I explained, and I even made a bunch of shorts out of it. They won't play yet for a while, though, because I only have 3 shorts a day that I send up there. I don't want to flood everybody with so many shorts, you'll go crazy. But if you recognize that a narcissist was abused, and that even if they were spoiled, that is abuse, which I go into, then that will change through healing. Abuse is trauma. People can change from healing the trauma appropriately. So just go read that stuff and you're going to understand where I'm coming from on that or watch that video. Because it's a mistake to compare a tiger's stripes, which are natural, and the tiger's born with, to a person acting like a narcissist as a result of their own abuse. That's not natural. Yes, finding coping mechanisms is natural, but we can change them. It's not like hair color or eye color. Well, you can change your eye color, right? You put on contact lenses, you can dye your hair. So yeah, there's a lot we can change deeply inside and outside. And the deep inside is far more important to me anyway. So it is now 9:30 at night. For those of you on the West Coast, it might be very early, so you don't mind being kept up an extra minute. One more thing. If you would like more information on this, you can email me, but a better way, if you don't have my email yet, is to get on my email list. I was just thinking about this. That's even better than my telling you my email. Why? Because if you get on my email list, you'll get notifications of everything I write, every live I do, every blog I post. And also I put up other videos that are not lives that I just create. I like in my spare time when I have nothing else to do, I'm also creating videos for this channel and writing posts. So go to drdeb.com. That's simple to remember, DRDEB, drdeb.com. And sign up for my newsletter and you will get a free, and tell me if it doesn't work, please, a free download of me helping walk you through a meditation of finding your self energy. I thought of that a few weeks ago on one of my other lives, and I actually created it and put it up there, and hopefully it'll work. So tell me if it doesn't. If it does, let me know. Okay, good. drdeb, drdeb.com. So this way you'll get that. And if you're already in my newsletter, just write me that you want the link to get it, and I'll get that for you. You're entitled to it. Everyone is. It's all good. All right. You good folks, thank you for showing up. It's a pleasure to talk to a little crowd instead of myself on the computer. So I love this time just for that reason. You've energized me. I can't go to sleep now. Good night. I'm sorry the chat didn't work. I have I do know why. Maybe because I walked the computer into another room. What do I know? That's technology. Good night, everyone. Take care.